I briefed the then Minister of Police on what I knew.
Chris Hipkins?
It was. I felt that it was important that he knew what I knew ahead of a statutory appointment process starting. Again, I don't, what did I say to him? I said, Jevon had told me he'd had an affair, that the affair was with a much younger woman, that the relationship had soured badly, and that now she was emailing all sorts of people with allegations about him.
Although 2022, I know, is before the greatest volume of emails.
Before it went publicly, so this was really based on what I knew from what Jevon had told me in terms of emails going to his wife, to his church, to...
Yes.
So, okay. I realise that at this point he probably hasn't committed a crime. But surely, someone high up in the leadership of the police, there's an expectation, a high expectation of personal integrity.
It's a really interesting question. It's a really interesting question, is how much do we hold these people accountable for the, not just these people, but people in positions of authority. I mean, like Don Brash is a perfect example. His multiple
I was
affairs.
just going to say that. Just going to say that your question is Don Brash.
And do you know the only person in New Zealand media who's ever asked him about that?
It's that man there. Yeah, because, I mean, this is the thing. A role that requires a super high level of integrity, and this is a point that I have about being a leader, is that you're an example. It's not always fair, but you are an example for everybody that is under you in that organisation. Right, and I think the idea that a senior police officer had an affair with a much younger person, you're willing to lie to your wife and your partner to get a little bit of strange on the side, and then the really gross power dynamic that came with the age and the power and the job. Like, I'm sorry, that's it. You're gone.
Yeah,
there has to be a way to manage someone out at that point.
Just for clarity, like for fairness and clarity, I don't know if it's at this point yet because I'm not playing all of it, but there was certainly a time where Andrew Costa didn't know that the person was working for the police and wasn't. He was just informed about the affair. Now, I don't know whether this is pre or post that, not defending any of that, but just to be accurate, this comes out in this conversation at some stage. I cannot testify to whether that's before or after the piece we're watching. I don't know, but that was there as well. And look, for people who don't know what Chewy just said, I spoke to Don Brash in an interview in whatever it was, 2007, 2011 podcast I did with Jeremy Elwood, and I said to him, how can we, the public, trust you if at least multiple times the people who you have been married to, the people who should trust you most of all, you've cheated on them and they can't trust you? How do we trust you? And Don Brash said, it's a very fair question. And I'm not about getting in someone's private business or someone's bedroom. I am about going, who you are behind closed doors is really who you are. And it's important, I think, for the public who are going to employ these people to know who they really are. So there has to be a middle ground between, who are you really and who are you pretending to be in public. Luxon pretends to be a CEO and a businessman. He's a terrible businessman. We know he's a terrible businessman because he negotiates from weakness. We know he's a terrible businessman because when you talk about negotiation, he literally sees both parties have to lose something. He doesn't go, both parties have to win something. He literally says both people have to give something up. He goes to the opposite side of it. And we know he's a terrible businessman because we found out from David Seymour that he didn't really care about the Treaty Principles Bill being a bottom line. But Luxon gave it to him anyway. He, in public, tries to present himself as a CEO businessman. In private, he's not. I think we can see that. There's other things in private. Think about Jevon McSkimming. If anyone knew what his real life was like, do you think he would have gone anywhere in the police? Of course not. So finding that balance between people deserve privacy, we don't want to see paparazzi on your doorstep, but an authentic human being, we need to be able to trust and believe these people. We need to be able to know who you are behind closed doors without having to look behind closed doors because that's your personal business.
And look, there's a really important aspect to this when we're talking about specifically the police or politicians or that sort of thing. If you're trying to hide something, some aspect in your life, it makes you a huge target for blackmail and corruption. There's a reason why this stuff is usually rooted out. So people can't compromise you into doing something that you shouldn't. We've seen that in the lower levels of police recently with, I think it was Christchurch police officer in a relationship with a gang member. You know, that's pick one. You can have the gang member, you can have the affair, whatever. You can't also be a cop.
Yeah.
Like pick one.
It's like being in government, like you've always said, Chewy. No investments, no business. I not my position on that would, like, and the example I think was Judith Collins, or was it Tariana Turia? I can't remember. Anyway, someone whose husband was getting a whole bunch of contracts from within government. I'm like, if you share a bed, Nanaia Mahuta, thank you. If you share a bed with someone, if you share a bank account with someone, then that person can't get contracts from a government that you're a minister in. You just can't do it. You can either pick to do big businessy stuff, or you can pick to do political stuff. You can't have the people who sleep on the left of the bed make all the rules around politics, and the person who sleeps on the right of the bed does all the business and applies to government with the same surname. So I think that's one of the things I would bring in, Chewy. Not quite the same as yours, burn down the house, but, you know, there'd be some other things that we could bring in there. Right, let's get to the end of this clip. How far through it? I don't even know what we're watching anymore. My brain, mate. Oh, here we go. This is still about the cabinet ministers. Did they know? Did they know? And so he said yes, and he started talking about Chippy.
You know, obviously lots to him. So this was based on his account. And look, to be fair, all of the people I briefed, I gave them my judgment that I believed, had no reason to disbelieve the account that Jevon had given me, and that I'd seen nothing that would lead me to believe what he was telling me was untrue. So I gave that judgment, but I did brief the minister as we travelled in the South Island in 2022. I then...
Yep, that's what I was going to play. And he asks, where did you give him the briefing? And he said, in the back of the car. And then Jack Thames says, can you prove this? And he said, no.